I look like I'm going to a funeral. Maybe I am. Today I wanted to do a bit of an end of year, or really new year now as it's January. Happy 2021. I wanted to do a Q&A because I thought it would be a nice kind of first video of this year and also act as a bit of a reintroduction or an introduction to me if you're new. Thank you so much if you sent a question in. These questions are actually all kind of compiled together from Instagram and YouTube. There are quite a lot, so what I'm going to be doing is doing another Q&A later down the line, so if your question isn't included in this one, it will be in another one. But also some of the questions were kind of all connected and some of them were very similar, so I have just kind of compiled them together so we can kind of get to know each other a little bit more in this video. The first question is, how are you? Apart from my appearance of looking like a Victorian widow going off to a funeral, I feel very chirpy today, feel very happy. To be honest though, I've been very tired, I feel. It's been the longest time I've took off work and for some reason my body just crashed and I felt like I needed more time off, I feel like I needed more time to rest. I think 2020 has been really catching up with me. It's been going so well, and then towards the end of the year I was just like, my body wants to stop. Because the whole world has been going through something, I think there's a certain amount of delay. I keep saying to Ben, do you think we'll wake up like 1 month and just go, what the fuck happened? What have we been through? What was this? Because it's just such a monumental thing to live through, and obviously we're very lucky to live through it. But yes, how are you? I hope you're all well, and thank you for sticking around. What was your last normal day before COVID? I really remember this just because it was quite monumental in its own little way, because my friend Errol was over from Canada, and the fact that she had obviously come from Canada and was staying with us, and we were going out to events together and walking around London. We also went to my wedding dress fitting because I was supposed to be getting married in the May, so it was full of hope and excitement of, you know, the next time I would see her would be my wedding and that kind of discussion. At the time COVID was being talked about, but something that didn't feel like it was going to impact us yet. It didn't really have that feeling. Then within literally the couple of days the borders closed, I started to work from home, everything happened so quickly. But I remember we were walking around, I think we were on Oxford Street, and it was really busy and we were just talking about it, like this thing that was happening. And you know, we spoke about all our travel plans and the hopes we had and things we were going to do, and then life as we knew it changed within a matter of a week. I just have an image of London being super busy. It was late at night, we were going out for dinner, lights were everywhere, people were everywhere, you know, a proper London, kind of a London experience, and the fact that in a week that would, you know, those streets would be empty is just really bizarre. But that was kind of my last normal week before COVID struck. One of your favourite happy, positive memories from 2020? I have quite a few really. I think, you know, Ben and I got to work from home together and got to spend a lot more time together and had a really lovely time, especially in the summer because it was so warm. We went on so many walks and things. In 2020 we adopted not 1, not 2, but 3 new hamsters. A sad footnote on that is that we did lose one of our hamsters this year, Leica's Russian dwarf, who we loved more than life itself. But we adopted Yuri, a little robust girl who's a complete nervous bean. Then literally last week we adopted 2, which has been, and in fact this week, it is this week that I'm filming it, that we actually adopted 2 hamsters. We adopted a retired breeding mum hamster, Belko's the Syrian. She's been quite poorly, hence some of the stresses I've been feeling while I'm so tired, looking after a small baby, even though, to be honest, she's the size of a horse. She's actually the size of a guinea pig. She's massive. But unexpectedly, we then adopted a little boy called Pushok, who is a Russian dwarf just like Leica was. He came from a very kind of bad situation, quite neglectful, and he was actually down the road and we had room. So unexpectedly, yeah, we got not 1 but 2 hamsters in a week. So they've been a plus, even though stressful, but they give us so much joy, and the fact that we now have 3 hamsters is a little bit insane. But yeah, definitely kind of positive moment. A cherry on top of the year, I feel, was to end 2020 with 2 new babies. I think the other positive thing, there must be more, but it's the fact that I got highly commended at the Book Marketing Society for a campaign that I basically was running, had worked really hard on. I put literally all of my blood, sweat and tears into this campaign, and it got highly commended, so I'm kind of like an award-winning marketer now. It was completely unexpected. I mean, I'd put the doc together, the pitch together, but I just did not think that it would ever even be highly commended. Because this year I've kind of put back certain career goals or certain things that maybe I wanted to achieve, I didn't give up on 2020. I just thought there's no point putting loads of pressure on myself when I just can't control this whole situation. So to end 2020 with actually my work that, was work that had been created really as a response almost to lockdown, for that to be recognised was amazing and was a lovely thing to happen in 2020. I had quite a few questions about goals, both kind of non-bookish and bookish. I think non-bookish would be like career progression. I think I have quite a few career goals, not even goals, just progression. As I said, I did kind of give up slightly. Well, I didn't give up, but you know what I mean. 2020 was such a weird year. But I think 2021, hopefully things will be moving a little bit more upwards, a little bit better, both in terms of kind of career progression and just how we're all feeling in life. Hopefully it will be onwards and upwards. Annoyingly, I also don't have that many bookish goals either. I would like to read more Dickens in 2021. I'd like to read more 18th century and 17th century writing, because that's stuff I'm really passionate about and I have a lot of video ideas. I've never done like a reading goal. I've never had a number of books I'd like to read, just because I'm such a mood reader and I'm 100% for just not reading if you don't feel like it. Overall though, I would like to read more books than I read in the previous year, because in 2020 I read more books than I did in 2019, so I'm hoping to continue that kind of trajectory in 2021. Do you ever get tired of reading? No, but I also don't think I read as much as you probably think I read. I don't read many books a year. I read so much less than probably ever be on Booktube or Bookstagram. I'm a very slow reader. I take a lot of time over my books. I read a lot of extra around my books. I'm aware that I come across as like a very, very, very bookish person, and that's because I am, because I'm bookish in lots of different ways, but it doesn't mean that I'm sitting here reading 50 books, 100 books. If I don't feel like reading, I don't read. And breaking news, neither do you. Life is too short to get stressed about stuff that should be pleasurable. At the end of the day, this channel is my hobby, it is not my job. I mean, I work with books for my job. I don't want my hobbies to feel like that. So no, I don't get tired, because you can't get tired of something that you probably spend the least amount of your time doing. When you're not reading, what are you doing? I'm probably taking pictures of something. I love taking pictures. I love days out when I can take my camera out, making videos. As I said, I love true crime documentaries and podcasts. I'm always listening to something or watching something. I've been like that ever since I was young. I'm probably also just on social media. I really love social media. Of course, I have a job as well. I'm probably with my hamsters. I feel like I'm constantly doing things with hamsters at the moment. I'm a massive chatterbox, so if I'm not reading silently, I'm almost certainly talking to Ben. I feel sorry for him. It's been a long lockdown. Have your reading tastes changed over the years? I don't think they do. I feel like you can totally chart who I was as an 8-year-old to now. Like, I really feel like I've stayed the same since primary school. There was a really funny tweet that went around ages ago, and it was basically like, the people who read Jacqueline Wilson novels as kind of children are now socialists. And that is basically me in one tweet. My interest in like social class and politics and dynamics is totally found or rooted in Jacqueline Wilson, and then I got older and just read different books. In the same way, I was always the child who kind of took out loads of non-fiction books from the library, and there was always like a limit on non-fiction and fiction as well from the library. But I would be fine putting back a novel, but I would really struggle picking from all the different non-fiction books. And that's the same now when I look at this reading year. I've read an awful lot of non-fiction, and that is really linked to who I was as a child and obviously who I still am. One thing I kind of love about myself is that the excitement and passion that I had as a small child is still me, and I think that's actually a really good quality to have in life. Have you read for pleasure since childhood? Yes. I can't remember a time when I wasn't reading or wasn't wanting to just hold books. I have this thing, 'cause I'm quite obsessive. When I get a new book or when I get a new anything, actually, I like to put it by my bed, and just so I can look at the books. Even if I'm not reading, I'm constantly thinking about the books that I'm going to read, what I'm going to read next, and I was exactly the same when I was a little girl. Favourite childhood book or writer? Jacqueline Wilson was my favourite writer. I don't think I can pick a favourite book, but I loved her books. I loved the whole kind of the Horrible History series I was obsessed with. There was a series that I loved as a kid, and I wish I collected all of them. I'd love to reread because they had gorgeous covers. I think they've changed them now and I don't think they're as nice, but they were called My Story and they were like fictional diaries from people in different historical periods. My favourite one was My Story Blitz. There was also another one which I think was The Great Fire of London. I don't think it was the play, I think it was The Great Fire. And again, 2 time periods that I'm obsessed with. You can just see where, you know, the seed was planted in these books. And I loved those. As a really young child, I think one of my favourite books obviously was Paddington. We were a big Paddington household. My mum loves Paddington as well. I also really loved The Tiger Who Came to Tea by Judith Kerr, which I think is my favourite picture book. When did you start reading classics? My first kind of adult classic was Northanger Abbey, and I think I was about 12. I do have a really old reading diary that I'll have to find somewhere and actually look up when I first read it. All I remember about my classics journey is when I was, I think, 11 in year 7, and I was desperate to read Jane Eyre, and in our library they had a really small selection of these hardback classics, those kind of the black and white ones, not Penguin, the hardback ones. I think it's Everyman Library. I remember constantly going up and picking Jane Eyre off the shelf, opening up, reading that famous first line about the impossibility of taking a walk that day and putting it back. And I kept toing and froing with Jane Eyre, and I don't know if I felt like I wasn't old enough or ready, and there was just something in me that just knew I really needed to read this novel. And I think Jane Eyre was the second classic I read, or maybe my third, and I will never forget the first time I opened it up for like probably the 7th, 10th, whatever number of times, and I continued reading. I think I had started so many times and just found it a bit too difficult, but I remember very clearly the feeling of, oh, I can keep reading now. I can continue this story, and that felt really monumental. The next question I got quite a lot, which is, what is a classic? And the answer is, I don't really know. Of course I know what society deems classics, but I'm not quite sure how I feel about the ones that I consider classics. I'm not quite sure why I consider them to be classics. I've been thinking about this quite a lot, but ultimately, what I think a classic is a social construct. When there's debate around classics, one of the main arguments is time, is the fact that classics just stood the test of time. They just magically kept appearing. And I always think, well, no, they didn't. People did that. Classics are a social construct. It was made by society and ultimately is therefore shaped by the society they were created in, written in, shared in. I think classics has a lot to do with print culture and reprinting, and because of all that we do have to look at society and who makes decisions in society, often institutions. If we think of kind of the big figures of each age, we have to question who they are, not necessarily if they have a right to be there, but just to understand that there are going to be voices left out of this conversation. I could just say classics are classics because they have universal themes. They are brilliant books, they are masterpieces, and they are, but they're also kind of a construct of a time and of a society. Therefore, they're problematic. It doesn't necessarily mean that the book is, but the whole thing is just weird. So I don't really know what it is, apart from it's a societal thing, as much as it is a literary. Do you ever buy books just to own them, or do you only purchase books you intend to read right away? It's quite rare that I buy a book and then sit down and start reading it. I tend to think of my bookshelves as a bit of a library. I think I have a theory that it takes about a year for me to purchase a book, then read it. And that's because I'm a mood reader and I'm such a changeable person. There are some books that I buy just to own them, but they are only kind of editions of classics or editions of books that I've already read and loved and want to keep as a bit of collector items. If you've watched my classics bookshelf tour, you'll know this to be the case because I have lots of editions of Mrs. Dalloway and Wuthering Heights, for instance. But apart from like specific editions of books, I never buy books that I'm not interested in or that I don't think I'll read. I'm very picky with buying books. I really interrogate them. I also have a big habit of walking around a bookstore with like a pile of books. I say pile, maybe like 3. And I walk around the bookshop and I nearly always put all of them down. If there is a book that I put back and then I regret, I will often sit with that feeling of regret for a little bit, and then if it's still there and I still feel like I really need it, then I'll buy it. I had this experience with Cecilia by Frances Burney. I haven't read it yet, but I put it back. I was in Gareth Street Waterstones, so I put it back, and the whole day I just kept feeling and thinking that I should have bought the book, and I just was weirdly sad about it. And then I went and purchased it. In general, I've kind of found that method to be a really good way of discerning what you should actually buy in life and what you actually need in life. Not that I necessarily needed that copy of Cecilia, but at the time, I felt like I wouldn't be able to live without it. And now I have her happily on my shelf, looking beautiful. Do you ever read with your partner, and are your reading tastes similar? So Ben is a massive reader. He reads all the time, he reads very quickly. We don't read together in terms of we don't read the same books, because we have different reading tastes. Ben loves fantasy novels and he loves history and non-fiction, but he tends to read like ancient history and like dinosaurs and things like that. What we often do though is we sit together and read separately, and then I'll annoy him by constantly wanting to read things that's happening in my book, read him quotations, tell him all about the plot when he's trying to read his own novel. Thinking of Ben, I had quite a few questions about getting married and about our wedding and if that was going to happen or what are our plans, and we actually do have plans now, which is good. We got engaged in 2018 and thought, you know, we'll have a couple of years to get ready before we get married, and then COVID happened and obviously there was no wedding. We're now planning actually to get married in 2022. We could totally go ahead with, you know, our York Register Office wedding in 2021, but just because we didn't want to have to reschedule anything, we just thought, let's just stick to 2022, and then we've got more time to really plan, because it's things like, you know, my last wedding dress fitting, Ben getting his ring sorted, little things that we just don't know how that would happen in 2021 with things, with how the world is, so it makes sense for us to kind of put it off again. It also means that it's in our control and that we have rescheduled because we wanted to reschedule rather than the world made us reschedule. How do you afford to live comfortably in London? This question in its own little way has, I guess, different layers to it. The foundation of why we live comfortably in London, or why we live in London, is the fact that we both earn salaries that pay each of us under 24k. That means that we can afford to have our flat and live the way we do. We can afford to pay all our bills. We're very fortunate and lucky that we can do that, especially because of everything that's been going on in the world. We've had very stable jobs and a stable income that's allowed us to work from home. In terms of living comfortably, there are just different factors. The fact that we live in South London, we don't live in Central London. The majority of stuff I do as well is completely free apart from travel, like travelling into London, kind of the tube and bus tickets and all of that kind of little expenses. Obviously they build up after a time. When I see my TfL bill, I get a bit worried. Apart from getting to places, everything we really do in London is free, like walking around. We visit kind of bookshops and things. We go to museums and art galleries. You know, pre-COVID, that was how we would spend our time, going to parks. We love kind of just walking around the city. That's pretty much all free to do. We're very lucky because we have a lovely flat that now we spend all our time in, and has been at the foundation of us, you know, being happy this year because we have a lovely place to live in. Basically, we have 2 incomes and no dependents, apart from, I guess, 3 hamsters. Apart from Bloomsbury, which parts of London inspire the strongest bookish feelings in you? I thought this was a wonderful question because it really made me think about why I love London. And I love Bloomsbury not just because of Virginia Woolf, but also because, I mean, there are lovely bookshops there as well, but also because it looks like something from a period drama. It looks like I'm in a novel. And for me, the places that I love the most can also transport me to a different time. So some of the off streets of kind of Covent Garden, I feel like I'm back in, you know, an 18th century novel, in the same way that when I go to East London, especially in Spitalfields, there are some streets there that literally look like they're out of a Dickens novel, and the architecture's the same. So I guess Spitalfields, also some lovely bookshops in East London. I do have a bookshop series of some of my favourite bookish places because of the bookshops, but when I think of a bookish feeling, I feel like I'm in the book rather than it being a specific literary landmark. If you could live inside a book for a week, which one would you choose? For me, this is a bit different because it's not like I read a fantasy novel. I can't go off to a fantasy world. The majority of novels I read tend to be historical novels. So because of that, I would like to time travel. If I could be present, so I could like interact with people but not die, that would be great. So I think I would go back to, I mean, loads of different time periods. I would like to walk around like coffee houses in the 18th century. As a woman, that would be interesting as well, especially as a woman, to see how, I mean, I probably wouldn't be allowed in. There'd be like one coffee house I could probably go in, but I'd like to walk around the streets of London, I would love, yeah, basically go around London in all the different time periods. I would love to go for a night, a dinner, a dance at Henry VIII's court. That'd be wonderful. In fact, I'd love to see all of the six wives of Henry VIII. I'd love to see what they actually look like. The main time that I would like to live in, I think, for a week, which is a strange one, especially because I really hate loud noises. Like, I'm very scared of bangs. Like, I have a phobia of balloons. I'm scared of fireworks. But I would love to go back to the Blitz, which I know is strange because it's like a really traumatic time in lots of different ways. But when I was young, I really wanted to build an Anderson shelter. I really wanted to have the bomb tape on my windows. It was like a dream. And I would love to go back and maybe experience a night in the Blitz in like central London. Let's say like, yeah, central London, East London. I would love to see that famous image of St. Paul's. I would just love to know what it felt like, which is awful because it would be terrifying. Like, it would be one of the worst experiences. I would just love to see the streets that I know in lots of different time periods. That would really fascinate me. I think if there was like a superpower, you know, there's always that question at like icebreakers, isn't it? If you had a superpower, what would it be? And mine would be to time travel to vaguely traumatic times in history. Which fictional character do you relate to? In terms of literature, I'm Mary Ann, like 100%, maybe a bit of Emma thrown in as well. But yeah, the sensibility, her passion, impulsiveness, the way she lives her life, the complete romanticism of it, everything is me. I always find it funny because the characters that I guess maybe Jane Austen is fondly critical of, like the sensibility, I basically fulfill all the worst attributes of a lot of characters of that era. I don't know how that makes me feel about myself. One of Ben and I's favourite TV programme is Parks and Rec, and I am like Leslie Knope. It's kind of sweet because Ben is literally Ben in the show as well. But yeah, we watch it and there's just loads of times where we just look at each other because we know it's me. I think I'll make this my final question, but it is, which are my favourite books apart from Virginia Woolf? I find this really funny because I think I've put myself into like a Virginia Woolf box where I'm kind of known for Virginia Woolf, and it's kind of funny because I do love her, but for so long my academic interest especially hasn't been Virginia Woolf, and I would like to talk about more than Virginia Woolf, but yeah, in every video I feel like I take myself back to Virginia Woolf. I think this will make quite a good video, so I might do it later on, but just off the top of my head, I love Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, Under Milkwood by Dylan Thomas, The French Lieutenant's Woman by John Fowles, Evelina by Frances Burney, pretty much all of Jane Austen, Howard's End by Ian Forster, the greatest Forster novel in my opinion. I've now forgotten every single novel I've ever read, so I'm just gonna really quickly have a look, just bear with me. Elizabeth Gaskell, definitely North and South. Thomas Hardy, Tessa D'Urberville's and Far From the Madding Crowd are my favourites, and I would love to read more Hardy because Hardy's my mum's favourite writer and I adore him. I do actually have a favourite shelf on Goodreads, so if any of you are interested and would like to know more of my favourite novels, I'll probably make a video on it, but if you'd like to have a look now, I'll put that in the description so you can go straight to that shelf. I think I'll leave the rest of the questions for another time so we can kind of check in again. Thank you so much for supporting my channel, for sticking around. Hopefully I've got lots of exciting videos coming in 2021, or the ones that I'll find exciting. I'm also very aware that it's literally gone from like dark grey to pitch black while filming this video. It's the reason I don't like the winter, because I always start filming videos way too late and then it just gets super dark and I'm just trying to figure out how to light anything because I tend to use natural light, but obviously it's kind of gone now. So yeah, a huge thank you for supporting my channel in 2020. I saw a bit of growth in 2020 and really got to know some more of you, and I really love making videos and I love that there are people out there who like watching them, and that really means the world. I wish you all a happy and healthy 2021 filled with wonderful books and hopefully some more videos. So thank you for watching. I'm now gonna go and shut my curtains because the whole street can see.